Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, and the founder of the Blended Pledge. And I am super excited to be here with you. We've got Valentina here from Nauta. And if you didn't listen to their episode, we're going to get to that in just a minute. But their episode came out last week that we did at Manifest, and it was full of amazing insights and things like that, but we're going to get to that. I want to give a shout out to our show sponsor, the Secret Society of Supply Chain. If you have not gone and checked out our free membership group, head over to Secret Society of Supply Chain and sign up today. I want to give a shout out to those who have signed up in the last week. We've got Courtney Jackson, we've got Go, and I'm not going to try your last name because I feel like I'm going to butcher that, Vance, and we've got Josh Toole. We've got Tevin Taylor. Welcome to the Secret Society of Supply Chain. We're super excited to have you. Now, for everybody in the audience today, I want to know where you're tuning in from. Make sure to put that in the comments because we want to know. If you've got any questions, put those in the comments. And if you love the conversation today, we want to hear from you as well. Well, let's get into what is brand new and what is happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. I literally just mentioned this episode 526. And you might be wondering why we have a new face of Let's Talk Supply Chain.com. That's right. We launched a brand new website last Friday, but we're actually not going public with it just yet, but you can go check it out if you want. This episode is with Valentina, and you're going to learn a little bit more from Valentina today, but this episode really gives you a glimpse into who they are and what they do and how they can help you. Now, this is a bit of a new thing over on our website as well, so go and check that out. Play around with the buttons. Let us know what you think because we would love to hear from you. We've got another new episode 527. This is Automate Global Freight with Servo AI. I sat down with Troy just a little while ago, and we talked all about what they're doing in the space, how they can help you. So go and check that episode out wherever you listen and watch the show. We've got another one, episode 528. Is your shipping budget ready? Now, I sat down with Reveal and Pacurate at Manifest to record this particular episode. And we talk about how collaboration really is the future of business and how the two of them have come together to really help you survive the 2026 GRIs. I know the GRIs, nobody wants them, but they happen every single year. And it's like, how do you stay on top of it? How do you protect your revenue? And actually, we're going to be talking about that a little bit more with Valentina a little bit later on in the show. And then we've got episode 529. We recorded this one also at Manifest, Empower the People Who Power the World with Samsara. And Tim joined me to talk a lot about who they are and what they do, how they can help you in your supply chains as well. So go and check that one out also. And then what do we have coming up as far as events? So I've got an upcoming webinar. Now, this is in collaboration with Supply Chain Brain and Oliver White, and we're talking about driving strategy execution to the next level. We're going to put the registration link in the comments. Go and register. It's April 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Then we're going to be recording podcasts on site at Modex. If you are going to be there, if you want to see us in your booth and creating some buzz, let us know because we're going to be there from April 13th through 16th in Atlanta. Then I'm going to be hosting live at Breakbulk with the team of JOC over in New Orleans, April 20th through 22nd. Definitely come and check this out. It's a great conference, specifically niche in this industry, and they provide a lot of really good insights, especially right now with everything's going on. What I felt like at TPM was that it was a good time for everybody in the industry to get together and commiserate around what's working, what's not working, how do we manage through all of these disruptions. Next, the National Supply Chain Day event, Operations and Business Leadership Gala. That's happening in Atlanta, April 29th. So make sure to get your tickets. And then, of course, we're going to be at Home Delivery World, and we're going to be recording podcasts on site there as well, May 20th through 21st in Nashville, and I can't wait to see you there. All right, what else have we got? Oh, let's talk supply chain Europe. If you're in Europe and you think that you would make a good host, we are looking for a host of Let's Talk Supply Chain Europe. We're going to put the application link in the comments so you can go and check it out and apply. We're currently looking right now, and we can't wait to meet you. So make sure to apply if you think that you would be the right host for Let's Talk Supply Chain Europe. And then we've got some big announcements coming up for Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia. Stay tuned because we are getting ready for that launch as well. If you want to go ahead and follow that page so that you can learn when we are ready to put that out. And last but not least, we put together a monthly pop just for you yesterday, the next stage of self-worth, how I'm learning to be a better leader. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about self-worth. How do we pair the two together? And it was really good timing because it was for International Women's Day. I want to give a shout out to everybody out there, all the women in our industry who are, making things happen. All right. Well, now it's time to bring up our guest for today. Valentina, welcome to the show.
Great to be here and great to see you again, Sarah. I feel like I've been seeing you around a lot lately.
I know. We just talked about the episode that came out last week, and we recorded that on site at Manifest, and you guys had a lemonade stand, which drew the crowds. And then we were also recording this particular episode, which drew the crowds, and you were very, very busy there.
It was crazy, yeah. And then we had TPM when I happened to sit down in a couch next to you. So it's always good to see you.
Yeah, so great to see you. And then we were at TPM together. So yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, a little bit about your company, but really we want to send people to that episode 526, where we really dig in deep as to who you are and what you do. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Valentina Jordan. I'm co-founder and CEO of Nauta. And Nauta is an AI native operating system for supply chain. More specifically, we help shippers, so distributors, wholesalers, manufacturers, traders, and retailers have real control of their data through SKU level all the way into warehousing using it.
Awesome. Awesome. And you were recently on TPM Today with Eric Johnson. What did you guys talk about?
Oh, wow. We talked about everything. I feel like amazing conversation. And it was a great segue pre-TPM where everyone was, three things what I know it is. Number one, super overwhelmed with how much is going on with AI. So should I sit back and relax and kind of watch this show and wait for other people to test it out? Should I step in and test it out myself? I think that was the first big topic. Second is the real ROI in AI, right? So people are wondering how should I measure this? How should I start? And is there real value for my company? And then the third and not being least is all the uncertainty and changes that we've had on a macro level that is affecting everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just being at TPM last week and with everything going on, it was such a different feeling, but I was very happy. I said this at the top of the show. I was very happy that the industry was together last week because I felt like it really made a difference just with everything that's happening, the tariffs, the refunds, everything that's happening overseas. It was just, I felt like people were just happy that we were together and we could talk through some of the challenges that were happening.
Couldn't agree more. And, I felt like TPM was such a close-knit community. People have been going back for years and that are so open to having a conversation. I mean, I was just telling you, just grabbing a coffee in line, everyone wants to know, what are you thinking? What are you seeing? So it's always great to get together.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that in just a minute because we're going to get to the market update. But I want to go through our poll. Now, we asked the audience, where do inventory decisions break? We had about 23 votes on this one, but we were tied in for 3 out of the 4 answers. Stockouts despite forecasts, excess stock, wrong location, slow response to demand. So those are actually a tie. And then 9% said low fill rate issues. Valentina, does this surprise you at all? What were you hoping to see?
Yeah, look, to be honest, no. I feel like connecting, again, SKU or inventory data with logistics, managing fill rates, stockouts, overstock is just so complex that there's no right angle or right answer to this. And it just reflects so different in every company. So can totally relate. It's what we're seeing with our clients and everyone has their own unique challenges. And I think it's deeply reflected in the results.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to give a shout out to Fred over on my personal LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, this is the part of the show where we dive into a bit of a market update. Now, we talked about you being at Manifest. We talked about you being at TPM. I mean, been a busy travel schedule already. What's top of mind for everybody? What are some of the conversations? I mean, obviously, you're having conversations about AI, and we're going to get into that a little bit, but how are people like feeling? What are some of the biggest questions that you're getting?
Look, I think that change is probably the big topic if I can summarize it to something. And the reason why it's because information is changing so fast by the
Yeah.
minute, by the day. And so trying to adapt your day to day, super chaotic operations to this amount of change is more overwhelming than it has ever been. There's also a lot of noise, and it's so hard to understand where to start. So that has been the biggest topic and the big conversation for us. It was extremely interesting at Manifest, where you have the more industry crowd and people understanding, coming up to us and being like, can you help us like kind of digest everything that's going on with AI, and where can we pull this thread, right? Like, where's a good starting point so that it feels manageable, so that it feels that
Mhm.
something that we can actually weave into our day-to-day operation. So I think this is a pure reflection of how the industry is extremely resilient. And even though with everything that is going on, people are actually open to change. And that's super gratifying to see as someone coming from the tech and product background.
Have you seen a bit of a shift from the overwhelm around like AI and technology to now it's sort of, we're clinging to our destiny. We know that like this is the next step of our business. And so everybody's leaning more into it rather than, feeling super overwhelmed.
Look, I'm kind of torn with the answer here because we definitely are seeing people leaning in and people are wanting to have a conversation. They're
Mhm.
wanting to understand what's the right approach. We're actually having some people with a build versus buy mentality, which I find super interesting, especially in an
Mm.
industry like supply chain. So we are definitely seeing a tendency of people leaning in and understanding that it's the inevitable like thing that it's going to happen to everyone, no matter if you like it or not. So
That's fair.
we're definitely seeing that now. What's interesting though is that there's so much going on that we do have people kind of wanting to stay from the sidelines and be let's wait for other people to make the mistakes or take the risks first before you do it. Now, this is super interesting because it's also
Mhm.
a risk because things are moving so fast, faster than we have ever seen before. So waiting is it can just mean the competitive advantage that your company can be building. So super happy to be having these conversations with everyone around why it's just about removing the noise, but don't wait, jump
Yeah.
into
Yeah, and I just went to an event over the weekend. It was for entrepreneurs, and the big focus was AI. There was messaging discussions and things like that, and but a lot of it was around AI. But it wasn't just like a seminar. Here's what you could do. It was more of here is what is possible. And every single LLM is changing their model on a 2 week to a 4 week basis, and you need to keep up.
it.
And my mind was blown at the actual, what people are doing with LLMs, what they're doing with AI. And this was just for, small to medium sized businesses. And I think to myself, where are the big businesses if they're not embracing it and they're not already playing around with AI and what that looks like? Because they were saying that in general business, we're about a year ahead with what we learned over the weekend. But in supply chain, I feel like we're almost like, 5 years ahead just because there's a lot of catch up that has to happen in this industry. And so it's a really interesting time. There's a lot of people playing around with it. There's a lot of people really just getting stuck in, like I said, having some fun, playing around with it, seeing what the possibilities are. And that is, I think, one of my biggest pieces of advice to everybody is to get in there, partner with companies like yours, play around with AI, see what is possible, because otherwise, like you said, they're definitely going to be left behind. And that would be a shame because I think we've got a lot of really great people. We've got a lot of really great companies within supply chain that we want to see survive. But it's going to be about collaboration. It's going to be about partnership and sort of finding their way.
100%. And, kind of reflecting on what you were saying right now is I think humanity is connecting back to our most creative selves. And I think that's what
Yes.
AI enables you to do. Sit down and you said, play around, test things out, do things for yourself, do things for your company. And we're transitioning from the analysis for paralysis to going to action. Like it's just so easy to act. And
Yeah.
so that's the invitation that we have for all of our clients. Tap deeper into your more creative self and let us help you make this all possible. So super aligned there. And then I think the second thing here, which people are not realizing, is that time is our biggest currency now, because building is not a competitive advantage anymore. So time is. How do you make the most of your time to move as fast as your company needs, to stay competitive, to bring that additional revenue, and to actually exceed everyone's expectations? So yeah, that's exactly, couldn't be more aligned there.
Awesome. I want to give a shout out to Paras over on the Let's Talk Supply Chain Insta. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us, we want to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure you put that in the comments. And if you're loving the conversation, we love a good fire emoji here. And remember, the QR code in the top right-hand corner will give you more information about Valentina and her company. So go check that out. All right, let's get to our first article. So this article is from Supply Chain Dive, and it's talking about 4 ways that Walmart is scaling AI to unify its supply chain. We've been talking about this, right? This is a big business. They're already doing it. They're already in it. They're already playing around with it. They're already seeing what is possible. And they're seeing it in a couple of different areas. And let me just point this out before I go to you, Valentina. They're using it for forecasting. So they're looking at past patterns, future plans, global and local trends. They're using it for inventory management. So detect, diagnose, and correct. And they're doing all of that in real time. So when Valentina talks about time is your biggest currency, this is a really, really good example of that. Warehouse operations, they're looking at production and safety. They're also talking about how AI is giving their people on the floor real-time next steps guidance as to this has happened, this is what you need to do. So fascinating. And then logistics management around drivers' routes, and also which port to actually ship from and ship through, which is mind-blowing. I mean, as somebody in logistics who grew up in logistics, I wasn't sure where the industry was going, but that is super, super cool. Valentina, what did you think of this article?
Look, companies have been trying this for a few years now, right? And so this is not new, and we love seeing them testing out. I think, again, it reduces noise and fear from the mid-market into this is the path forward, right? This is the only way that we'll be able to stay and remain competitive.
Mhm.
And definitely agree that the right approach is taking it by very specific focus areas. And that's how we help our clients. You've got to go very deep into specific use cases where you can show that there's transformation. And that's what Walmart is showing us, right? Like very clear use cases, very clear application where AI can transform and augment people. I think that the big thing here is that we're seeing a ton of layoffs, we're seeing a ton of changes, and can't necessarily relate this to AI. But what we are seeing is other companies, right, that are using it to empower their teams. And I think that's a great example of what we're seeing with Walmart.
Yeah, and I want to point something out. So I was hosting live at TPM last week. You can go and check out those videos on JOC or S&P Global's YouTube. And I had an interesting conversation, an interview with the CEO of Hellman, who was talking about AI. He was talking about the workforce. I had another interesting conversation over the weekend with somebody else who said, we're going to keep who we've got, but we might not be hiring. So there's a lot of discussion around this and how companies are viewing this as to what that workforce is going to look like. And it's going to change pretty dramatically. And so if you're not in this and you don't quite understand it, or you're not bringing that to your organization, you might want to think about starting to play around with AI starting today. One of the other things is they're testing small pieces and then they're rolling it out to the rest of the company. I wanted to point that out because not everybody obviously is a Walmart and has the opportunity to test it. But I do think that that is an important part of an implementation strategy so that you can get people on board and excited through the testing process before you roll it out across the organization. And we're working on a few ways to be able to do that with particular partners in this industry as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and I think that's precisely why having a clear use case is super important. Like, and that was the conversations at TPM, right? If you have a real use case that you can measure, there's real ROI. You can't just, throw something into the ocean and expect for it to, to fish. You want to be able to be super targeted.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to our second article. Now, this article is about your inventory optimization engine and how you're using it to prevent stockouts. Now, I've got a couple of questions about this because I think it's super interesting. Considering we just talked about Walmart using AI for warehouse operations and inventory management, this is extremely timely because those big businesses, enterprise businesses, are looking for this kind of solution. But one of the questions in this article talks about data. Why is data still so unreliable? Like, why are we here?
Yeah, and that's a great point because supply chain and logistics and procurement is all filled with data. The problem is that this data lives in disparate systems that are siloed and that don't necessarily speak to each other. And that's Nauta's main value proposition. We help shippers connect all of their internal systems, ERP, TMS, WMS, OMS, almost like an orchestrator, and add the actionability layer on top of it so that you're not sitting there saying how your product is running out or how you're overstocked, but you actually can do something about it with the most complete and precise information that you have at that precise moment. So we're transitioning, from having to look into multiple systems to having to make decisions that feel super overwhelming to having agents take action and you making the final call with the full picture of data that you have. So that's where the world is moving towards. Agents take actions, humans make decisions.
Well, and it's interesting because one of the things that I was walked through over the weekend was how you can use AI to do a morning briefing. I know it's not the same as inventory, but it's almost the same. If you think about going into your day and having AI draft all of your emails, put them in the draft folder, right? And then take a look at your calendar and give you a briefing on every single one of the, meetings that you have for the day. It's fabulous what they can do. And so I just use that as an example to put it into context about how we're now using AI in a variety of different ways to help us through our day. So why wouldn't we do it for inventory management? Yeah. One of the questions also in this article, how do you use it to protect revenue? Now, everybody's looking at cutting costs, right? Yeah. But I like the way that you framed it because it's more positive, right? How do we use it to protect revenue? Talk to us about that.
Look, I think how we approach it now is we divide everything on cost savings and then revenue generation. It's always easier to cost costs faster. Right. So you do want to generate that trust, that reliability, embed AI in your processes first through cost savings. But you always want to transition, as you mentioned, into revenue generation because that's what's going to generate lasting relationship with your provider and internally protect or justify the solution. So how we do revenue generation is divided in two. We help companies with fill rate, which means no overstock, not stockouts. They both impact your revenue directly because if you have stockouts, you're leaving money in the table. Mm-hmm. No company wants to leave money in the table. And then of course, if you're overstocked, then you have inventory, your cash tied on inventory that is not selling, that is not rotating. So it's limiting your ability to grow as a company. So that's the first one, fill rate. And there's a variety of use cases that we help our clients with, depending on how they're operating. So I loved your analogy on how it's AI is drafting your emails, yes. Because the reality is that that's a use case. And people need to start thinking of their day-to-day as use cases. It doesn't need to be this huge, overwhelming problem. It just needs to be a process, a nitty-gritty, repetitive task that you're doing that AI can gather as much context as possible through your different systems. And then the output is a decision that you're making and the agent is taking the action. So fill rate is a big one for us. And then second is cash on cash cycle. So we all know that cash flow is a silent killer in supply chain, and so we go very deep with our clients to help them control this through, again, inventory management.
I love that. I love that. So, one of the other things that you said in the article is that this is really driving demand for you. Why is it driving demand? Why are like, it feels like everybody's sort of looking for this kind of solution for their inventory right now. Why is that?
Look, the reality is that most shippers, so wholesalers, distributors, traders, manufacturers, retailers, are in the business of moving goods, not of moving shipments, right? So having the right inventory levels is everyone's like ethos, biggest challenge. And they're always working to try and get that pendulum not in overstock, not in stockout, right in the middle. So it's the constant fight to get this. And AI has never been as stronger, and it's going to be stronger tomorrow, to be able to help this for three reasons. The first one is context. We're able to capture all the context from the industry, from the organization, and from your users. Second is handling large data volumes that are normally unstructured. It was super challenging before. And then third, and not being least, is that it's always up to date, and it's helping you take action over the data. Before, you just had to be analyzing information. So your job was either to firefight or to analyze, and you couldn't do both. AI is helping you do that.
Absolutely. We got our first fire emoji from Susan Harrison. Thank you so much for showing up today and giving us a fire emoji. Let's get to our last article. We've got a couple of minutes on this one. Now, this was an article that Eric Johnson put together just a couple of weeks ago around the tariff decision and the refunds. Now, I'll tell you, I also did an interview for Live at TPM. Go and check it out, because they gave us a bunch of information as to what that's going to look like. But first, Valentina, I want to give you a chance to give me your thoughts on this particular article, and then I'm going to share some of the stuff that I learned at TPM last week.
Yeah, look, 100%. We do, our view here is that this is probably the most resilient industry because things change so much. So if you work in supply chain, you need to be ready for the unimaginable. You need to be ready for what's deemed impossible. And I think this is just another event where the unpredictable, where we weren't expecting, happened all of a sudden. So our approach was to help all of our clients, again, shippers, facilitate all of their data for their customs broker. That's the way that we were able to help. So when the news came out, we immediately built a tool to help our clients, again, structure and organize all the data so that they could, in one click, send it to their customs broker and give them a panorama of what they could expect to be refunded. So we're not customs broker, but we believe in a supply chain world where things are connected, where data can travel easily. And the best thing that we could do was create those rails of information to connect.
Yeah, and a lot of companies are going to need that. Martin, I want to give you a shout out too, because he also gave us our second fire emoji for today. They're liking the conversation. Now, a couple of the questions that I had was, how long is it going to take? Is the money there? And are the people? Like, do we have enough people for this process? Now, he said a lot of it's going to be reliant on technology, but there's still going to need to be a human element. So the gentleman that I interviewed last week said it's going to be 90 days. I don't know if that's 90 days from last week, but he's fairly confident that once they make a decision, it should be 90 days to get refunds. We'll see. Yes. The money is apparently there. So the money is there for the refunds, but the people are not. So they do need to hire some people to really help with the refund process. There's 320,000 legal disputes. There's 20 that are active at the moment and 300 that are in waiting. So just to let everybody know, that is a long wait time if you're at the end of that list. And I was also talking to a VP of supply chain last week as well. And he was saying that some will get filed and some will not. If it's a $400 refund and it's going to cost them maybe $200 or $300 to file it, they may or may not actually go for that refund. So the volume that we're talking about may actually look a lot different once the organizations can really get a handle on the the refunds that they're potentially going to get back, but what is the cost of getting that refund back? And is it worth the time, energy, money, and resources? So it'll be an interesting time. We're going to see. Don't hold me to the 90 days. Go and check out that video and hold him to the 90 days. Valentina, any last comments for everybody in the audience around AI? What should they be doing and thinking about? And what's some advice?
Look, find your creative brain, get your hands on it, start testing it out, find a partner that is long lasting, that has your interest in helping your company actually grow. Don't get deviated with the shiny diamonds only on cost reduction. Find revenue generation partners that can, again, grow with you and have your best interest for the long run. So excited to talk to anyone who wants to have a conversation, and we'll keep building here by the minute.
Love that. And everybody loves a good new revenue stream. I mean, who doesn't? Anyways, on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And Valentina, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.